All right. We are back with another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. I hope you guys are having a great week wherever you are and whatever it day is for you. As always on the podcast, it's Friday, so we're bringing that Friday energy to you. And here in Washington, it's kind of weird. We actually had, if you can believe it, a tornado warning in Washington State. Literally,
Wow.
I've lived here 30 what? I'm 38. I've lived here 38 years and I have never had a tornado warning. But unfortunately, we didn't actually get the tornado. I was kind of excited for it, but yeah, didn't happen. So it's just weird weather, but it's a good day because we got Dave Dubau with us on the podcast. Dave is here to talk about raising capital, specifically raising capital with a podcast. So should be a good one. Dave, thanks for hopping on the show.
Gabe, it's my pleasure. And I had the pleasure of interviewing you on my show, my podcast, a couple of weeks ago, and it's always a lot of fun. So thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Dave, I told you before we get on here, we always like starting with stories to hear how people got to where they are. So why don't you give us a quick synopsis of your story in real estate? How'd you get here?
Well, Gabe, I'm a lot older than you are, so keeping it short's kind of hard. But bottom line is I got into real estate seriously 2003 after living overseas in beautiful San Jose, Costa Rica for
Ooh,
10
that's fun.
years.
What were you?
I,
Side note here. What were you in Costa Rica for?
well, yeah, that's a good question. I after university, I traveled around, ended up in Costa Rica, loved the place, decided, hey, why don't I set down some roots here? So, I was 23, I had $1,000 to my name, was an illegal immigrant in a foreign country and decided how tough could it be? And so it's kind of a reverse
This is the
wetback,
mindset of a 23-year-old. I love
wetback situation.
it.
And I started a language training company down there, and we gave corporate English classes to companies like, wow, Pfizer Pharmaceutical,
Mm,
Intel, Kimberly Clark,
yeah.
large transnational type companies. So yeah, that's what I did, and got married, had kids, had a whole life going on there. And then in 2003, my kids were getting to be towards school age. And although we loved Costa Rica, my Costa Rican wife and myself decided, hey, Canada is probably a better place for our kids to grow up. So we moved back to beautiful British Columbia. So I'm your neighbor. I'm just up the road from you a little ways,
Nice.
and started all over again from scratch. And that's how I got into real estate. I saw one of those, you too can get rich in real estate with little or no money down. And I hadn't been able to sell my business in Costa Rica. So that's what I had, little or no money and zero credit and, all this kind of stuff because I was just very new back to Canada. So I got my little minivan and decaled it all up with I buy houses fast, cash, any condition, anywhere, any place type thing. And went to work doing creative, low money, no money down type deals right off the get go. Did about 18 deals in 18 months, which was what was keeping the lights on, which sounds impressive, but a lot of those were just crappy little mobile homes and stuff like that. But
Hey, it's a deal's
hey,
a deal.
a deal's a deal. That's how I got my feet into it. Fast forward a little bit, connected with the Canadian version of Robert Kiyosaki, kind of the rich dad, poor
Hmm.
dad of Canada. The guy was putting on seminars and stuff like that, and I had a bit of a marketing background. So his thing was about real estate and whatnot as well. So joined forces with him for a number of years, kind of the marketing guy behind the scenes, helped them fill up events and raise capital for larger projects and that sort of stuff. And eventually ended up in the multifamily space and then clued in fairly early on that I kind of suck as an operator, to be perfectly honest with you, Gabe. Like
Hey, as long as you know your strengths and
I,
weaknesses, that's
I
all that
definitely know
matters.
my weaknesses in dealing with toilets, tenants, and nitpicky, you know, accounting details are not my strengths. So
Mm,
yeah, so these days more of a passive investor, and really I love the marketing side of things.
mm.
So we've the last dozen years I've been working with capital raisers. Started off with kind of the mom and pops just getting started. In the last year or so, we've really cranked things up with syndicators and fund managers and professional capital raisers, helping them to connect with accredited investors and raise capital that way.
Perfect, man. I love the story. I love hearing people's stories because especially in real estate, I just feel like they're so diverse and so varied. You started in Costa Rica, got to Canada, put the sticker on your van, which actually that's the first time I've heard of people doing that. And I have thought previously that that is a good idea. Like if you have a larger car, if you just, what do you call it, wrap it
Deckle. Yeah.
with I buy homes, that I feel like that would be you'd get some
I
good
got
leads
I
there.
got three deals from the vehicle signage. The best one I got, the lady chased me down. I thought, oh crap, I must have cut this person off or something because she was driving like a maniac behind me, honking her horn. So I pull over and she jumps out. She says, "Oh my goodness, I need to. I've been trying to sell this damn house for 3 or 4 years, kind of thing." And it was a really nice house, but it was custom built. It was kind of
Mm-hmm.
out on a lake away from town, kind of
Yeah,
thing. She was living, her husband had, it was a dream home. Her husband had died. And then she didn't want to be there anymore. So she moved back to where the family was. So this thing's sitting vacant and it's gone through like four realtors and nobody's able to sell it. So anyhow, ended up doing a deal on that and doing an option on that property and got it sold. And that was a nice little $35,000 profit thanks to the I buy houses decals on my van.
there you go. And what those wrapping it costs what, $1,000, $2,000,
Oh,
something
not
like that.
even. This is a long time ago, man. That's
Ye-
2003,
Right.
2004. So I don't think I paid more than $300 for that.
So that was a good return there.
Hmm.
Um, awesome. So capital raising, that is
Yeah.
one of once people decide to get into real estate, usually they take the path of they start in wholesales, maybe they do a flip or two, and then they get to the point where they're like, "Crap, I'm out of money. I bought
Yeah.
maybe one or two rentals, and now my capital, my own personal capital, is exhausted." Maybe they've even done a deal and they've raised money from friends and family, but that also will quickly be extinguished because we only have so many friends and family with so much money. So
Yeah.
eventually, you're going to get to the point where you need to raise capital for your deals, and it comes quicker than people think. It's like if you, especially if you have big ambitions, you want to get into bigger deals. Taking down, even when you get to $1 million, you have to get 25 to 35% down. That's three hundred
Yeah.
and fifty thousand dollars. It can be done once or twice with friends and family, but then you really do have to start reaching out to other people, and that is a difficult hurdle, and I feel like one of the most important hurdles you what do you call it, John? What do
Have to
you call when you
overcome.
go
Yeah.
you
You have to
overcome? There we
face that.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you overcome, when you're building your business. So let's talk about it. Raising capital. Take us to your first time that you raised capital for a deal. Give us some color around it. What was the story, and then what'd you learn from it?
Yeah. I crashed and burned.
as as is the case when you do something the first time.
Yeah. I heard some dude say, "Hey, just find a really good deal and the money will magically find you." So I did. I did exactly what you said. I tapped out friends and family and all this kind of stuff. And well, actually, no, I didn't tapped out. I tapped myself out,
Mm,
first of all. And then I came up with this is when I was still doing single family homes, came up with a really good deal. Needed to raise 85,000 for that particular property. Remembered that thing, hey, find a good deal, the money will find you. So I hadn't done anything to proactively look for investors before that. So I had 2 weeks to come up with the cash to close on this property. And that's when I started scrambling. So I'd heard, hey, if you need to raise money, pick up the phone, start dialing for dollars. So bang, cranked through my little phone list of people and promptly got turned down and rejected massively by every single person because it was a good deal, but I was just, you're desperate, right? And
yeah.
you haven't spoken
Never
to
a good
somebody in,
position to come
oh
from
no, it
is
sucks.
being desperate.
Yeah, it's just bringing back bad memories. So, just calling people at Dave, I haven't heard from you in a long time. Here you want 85 grand, bugger off kind of thing. That
Right.
was
Yeah.
kind of the gist. So then I also heard, hey, if you need to raise money, go out and turn every conversation into a real estate conversation. Didn't mention that you should be doing that way before you need the money, but anyhow, I had 2 weeks, so I'm Chamber of Commerce, BNI, Toastmasters, whatever, wherever they'd let me in the door. There I went with my little business cards, schlepping up a storm, 30-second commercial. Of course, that's not going to work. Who's going to invest almost $100,000 with a stranger they just met at a networking event? But hey, logic didn't come into play. Then I thought, hey, I'll get smart. I put together a list of everybody I knew. I had all their email addresses, put together a PDF about the deal and spammed that out to everybody I knew. And again, got responses, but they were not pleasant responses because I was just so clumsy about how I did it. Right. So one guy said, Dave, I haven't heard from you in 18 years. And the first thing I hear from you is you want some money take a hike, right? So
Right.
lost, couldn't raise the money for that damn deal, lost that deal. And that's when I said, hey, you know what? There's got to be a better way. So
Mm.
forget that. Wait till you got a deal, then start raising the capital. You got to be doing both, right? You got to be looking for deals and you got to be looking for capital when you don't need it. It's kind of like a bank, right? When's a bank most likely to lend you money? When you don't need it, right? That's
When you got
so,
plenty of it, you got cash
yeah.
flow
Oh,
out the
yeah,
yin
sure.
yang. They're
Yeah.
like, here, take more money. You're like,
Yeah.
where were you 10 years ago when I needed that money?
Exactly. So it's the same kind of thing with investors, right? When you can talk with people and you're not under the pressure of funding a deal today, you can be a lot more relaxed. And that just, it doesn't matter how good your deal is. If they get that needy, creepy vibe from you, you're going to turn them off, right? At least that's been my experience. So that's when I came up with this whole idea. Why don't we start using some intelligent marketing to generate interest from people and get things going that way? So that was kind of my single family home capital raising days. Moving up into multifamily, once you're trying to get like out of your immediate network and you're trying to connect with high income, high net worth people, accredited investors, what I found has worked really, really well, Gabe, is actually a podcast. Like
Mm.
you and I
Starting
are,
your own or being on others?
well, both, but definitely starting your own, but doing it a little bit differently.
Mm.
So I'll just give you a little backstory about my podcast, Property Profits Real Estate Podcast. I started this back in 2018, which in podcast years is quite a long time. And I think we're at 1,200 episodes and
Actually,
counting at this
I
point.
think I started this one in 2019. So 1 year after you.
Yeah,
We're,
there
we're
you
pretty
go.
similar.
Yeah, very similar. So I was, at the beginning, I was kind of like everybody and was like, hey, I want to have this podcast. I want to have the Robert Kiyosaki's and the Grant Cardones of the real estate world on as my guests, and I'll have a weekly show and I'll grow a huge audience. And hopefully some of those people will clue in that Dave's kind of a smart guy and reach out and somehow we'll magically get connected and do business. And it kind of happened. I mean, I interviewed some really cool people, yourself included, obviously, but um, the connection with growing that audience and turning that into business was not a straight line, right?
Mm.
So it was actually about 2.5, maybe three, no, 3 years ago now. I was listening to a podcast and I heard this guy say, "Hey, you know what? I do something different with my podcast. So instead of worrying about audience growth, instead of worrying about all those metrics, what I do instead is I laser focus on interviewing the exact kind of people I want to work with,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So and then I focus on interviewing more than just one a week. So
Mm.
get up to where you're doing, for our clients, it's typically 5 interviews a week. For
Oh,
myself, I kind of do this more seriously. I
that's
do 8 to 10 interviews a week.
wow. That's when I first got started, I tried, I was doing one a day. And so I did, excluding the weekend. So I did five. And
Mhm.
I felt that burned me out pretty quickly. Now I do three on Fridays and that's it.
Uh-huh.
What do you say to, well, I kind of jumped in there, but when you're responding, give us a little bit of feedback on people that, you're saying, how many did you say? Five? You're
Yeah.
supposed to record five. So what do you say to the burnout that comes when you're doing that many podcasts?
Simple answer, which I had to learn the hard way. So, shorter episodes,
Mm.
shorter interviews. That's the trick. So, for my show and for our client shows, I recommend shooting for a 20 to 25-minute interview max,
Mm.
blocking out about 40 minutes to do interviews. That way, if you block out two time frames a week for 2 hours each time, you can fit in up to 3 interviews in each time block,
Mm.
right? 40-minute interviews. Um, so you jump on Zoom with your guests, you break the ice, you let them know what's going to be happening. You do the interview for 20, 25 minutes. Then at the end of the interview, you got a little bit of time with the guests as well to kind of get them into the next thing. You have time for a little bio break, and then your next interview happens back to back. So kind of like what you're doing on Fridays, but a little bit more condensed into a 2 hour time chunk and do it twice a week. Does that
Yeah,
answer the question?
no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so before that, you were talking about the strategy that this person that you met with, they
Yeah,
use. They like to interview the people that they want to work with. And
exactly.
so, how does that lead to more investors?
Yeah. Okay. So then let's apply this to us as real estate investors, right? So let's say you're a syndicator and you're looking to connect with high income, high net worth individuals, accredited investors, right? So the first thing we got to do is figure out who is your ideal avatar, everybody's favorite word, right? Your ideal investor avatar. So let's say it's a local successful business owner.
Mm.
So for example, you're in around Seattle, right, Gabe?
Yep.
So if you were to do this particular methodology, maybe it is you create a podcast that is kind of Seattle focused, right? So Seattle success or something like that. And it's not really about real estate because you got to remember, we're interviewing these people. It's all about them.
Mm.
It's all about making them look good, feel good, sound good. It's
Mm.
about featuring them. And what are successful people interested in? They're interested in success, professional, personal, financial success. They're already successful. They want to be more successful. So we like to have them on the show to talk about that, strut their stuff a little bit, right? And that's how we attract them as the guest as well as the audience for the show. So we make it all about them, not so much about us and real estate.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's how we attract them. We figure out who is our exact avatar, and we got a whole bunch we can go into there. But basically, you can find these kind of folks doing really good LinkedIn searches, or if you've got a bunch of investors already, connect with their connections because they birds of a feather flock together, right?
That's how I started this one
Yeah.
initially. Was LinkedIn. I knew I wanted to do a real estate podcast, and so I started emailing. I just searched like real estate investor on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and I sent a bunch of invites. And eventually, once you start your podcast, agencies start to hear, and then now
Mm.
you got a ton of
You
people
get
coming to you, and so you
inundated.
don't have to like do the outreach. But yeah, initially that is how I did it. I reached out on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So that's the idea. And the whole psychology is what's really brilliant about this, Gabe, because, typically most syndicators and capital raisers, they're out there networking. They're doing a lot of
Mm.
manual labor to try and connect with high net worth people. So going to events and seminars and stuff and handing out business cards and following up and trying to connect and basically trying to book a sales call is
Mm.
what they're trying to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most successful people are a little bit hesitant
Don't want
about
to get on
getting,
those sales calls.
who does, right? Nobody does. However, if we offer them the opportunity to be a guest on a podcast,
Mm.
they love that idea because that's free publicity, that's free marketing for them. And the interesting thing I found over the years is a lot of really successful people have never been invited to be on a podcast before, which for you and I is hard to believe because we've been living podcasting for so long. But I had one client, we reached out to a fund manager. The guy managed $1 billion fund. We
Damn,
invited
that's
him to
a
be
big
on the
number.
client's, yeah, invited him to be on my client's podcast. The guy was thrilled.
Hmm.
It was the very first time he'd ever been invited to be on a podcast before. He was thrilled, and not only that, but the positioning is great because now they're coming to the show. They're coming in as the guest. They're a little bit nervous, right? Because especially if they've never been interviewed before, they kind of your status is elevated because you're the host with the most, and it's just a very nice dynamic. You put them at ease, make them feel comfortable, have a lovely interview. It's a shortcut to creating that rapport, that connection. Again, know, like, and trust. That's what you need for somebody to invest with you. They get to know you, they get to like you. It's a good, and you're on the path to getting them to trust you as well.
Nice. Well, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. And what's unique, I feel, about what you're saying here is that you're not suggesting people necessarily go out and start a real estate podcast, even if you are a syndicator, because you
I'm
recommended,
suggesting you don't do that.
right?
I'm firmly suggesting you do not do that.
Right. So
Yeah,
you're saying start a podcast in a niche that you want to raise capital from. So if you want to do
right.
local hairdressers, you really don't. That's not a
No,
good
you
niche to
don't.
start. But but as an
If you want to
example,
do local successful business owners, that would
right?
be a good group to go after.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the Seattle Business Podcast or the
Yeah.
Tacoma, wherever you live, the Victoria. You're not in Victoria. Where are you? You're in
I'm in the middle of BC, but anyhow, it's
there you
irrelevant.
go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Um, And so tell people starting a podcast, when I did it, I didn't really have a lot of direction. I just kind of fumbled my way through it.
Hmm.
Give people a little bit of direction when it comes to the process, the step by step process of what they need to do in order to get this started.
Hmm. Yeah, they can. I mean, honest to goodness, hire somebody to help
Yeah.
you set this sucker up. I mean, we do that, so that's kind of self-serving. But if you're hell bent on doing it yourself, it's you can Google it. But bottom line is, honestly, the most important thing is to make sure that your Zoom is working nicely. Make sure that you've got a good microphone. Make sure that you've got good lighting so that when you're doing your interviews, you look good and you sound good. That's step number one. Okay.
Yeah.
Step number two is the podcast platforms and all that kind of stuff. Um, the one we use, just because it's the one we use, is called Podbean. It's pretty
Mm-hmm.
user friendly,
Yeah.
so
I
that's
use
great.
Spotify, not Spotify. I use uh Buzzsprout. There we go.
Buzzsprout, yeah.
Yeah.
So same idea, whichever.
Yeah.
And these kind of send out your podcast to all the major platforms. So that's how it's going to get up on, iTunes. That's how it's going to get on iHeartRadio and Spotify and all the big guys.
Yeah.
Is if you put it up in one of these, then it automatically gets it sent out.
Yeah.
The other thing I always recommend, because we do these interviews on Zoom, have your own podcast YouTube channel as well. So you can put the videos up on the YouTube channel, kind of get a two for one there. Um, Otherwise, technology, well, you can be as complicated or simple as you want. Some sort of a way for people to book in that can be as simple as a Calendly page, right? So they book in for the interview, have some questions on that Calendly page, so you get some uh, information about the person ahead of time. And that's, tech wise, that's about all you really need.
Pretty simple. It's pretty it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
And I will say, I'm just going to butt in here for you mentioned that you have to have a good mic and a good video recorder, a good camera. I didn't
Mhm.
really realize how important that is until a little ways into my journey. But for mics, I would recommend if you guys are interested in starting a podcast, get the Shure Shure SM7B. I love this mic. It's a mid-range mic, so it's about $400. It's not that expensive, but yeah, it's a really high quality mic. I'm just gonna put that little piece out there. I have not
Nice.
found a good camera yet for under $5,000.
Oh, you don't need that good of a camera. I mean, the only thing that what I use is a little Logitech thing that I've had
Mm,
for a number of years. That's not super important.
mm.
Just decent. The lighting's probably more important than anything, so that if you're going to do a video version of your show, so that you kind of pop. Yeah. So
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, we have run down the clock, so it is time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
sure.
All right, let's get started. It starts with education. Could be any form, could be a conference you've gone to, mentorship program you've been a part of, book you've read, movie you've seen, anything. But I need two recommendations, one for general life wisdom and then one for real estate.
General wisdom. Well, I'm into business type stuff, so um, revisiting a book that I absolutely love called The Ultimate Sales Machine
Mm,
by Chet
I
Holmes,
read that. Yeah.
version 2, updated
Oh, okay.
version. So, yeah, that's an amazing, amazing book. General book, again, I read a lot of businessy type stuff, but Who Not How is another big one up there. I love that book.
Mm-hmm.
Real estate specific, well, business specific. Uh, Profit First, that's a book that I wish I had found like 25 years ago, but better late than never. So yeah, there's three
Sounds
instead of two.
good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go back to the earlier version of Dave, the one who was getting started back in 2003. He was just moving back to Canada, thinking about starting his business. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Hmm. One piece of advice moving forward. You know what? I'm pretty happy with how things went. I probably wouldn't change too much at that point. I might go back 10 or 15 years before then and tell a much younger Dave to not stress out so much and enjoy the ride a little bit
Enjoy
more.
the ride. Yeah.
You know, who cares? When you're young, you never listen to that advice
Yeah.
anyhow. Somebody already gave that advice to me. I didn't pay any attention to it, so here's what it
Yeah,
is.
that is the conundrum about growing old is that you get all these wonderful wisdom, pieces of wisdom that you just can't, younger person would not listen to,
Yeah, you
but you
wouldn't
know it
have.
now and that's what matters. All right, next question is about lessons learned. Not every deal we
Yeah.
get into goes the way we expect it. In fact, many times things go wrong, but that's when we get to learn a lesson. So, what was a deal that went a little sideways for you? And then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
Oh man. I've had several deals go sideways on me, but one that really sticks in my mind is not paying attention to my gut. So
Mm,
I was doing rent to own type creative deals for a few years, Gabe. And I remember we had one tenant buyer lined up, and you know, you're doing rent to own, you expect people's credit not to be perfect and there to be a few little glitches and stuff there. But my spidey senses were just tingling with this particular client. And I still went ahead and did the deal, and it turned out to be a disaster. And they trashed the house, and I
mm.
lost a lot of money on that kind of thing. And the the spidey sense thing was the lady said, uh, "Yeah, I can't believe I absolutely love Tim Hortons, which is a coffee donut place up here in Canada. So I think Dunkin' Donuts, basically that
Okay.
kind of idea."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah," and I can't believe it. I looked at my bill. I spend $600 a month on Dunkin' Donuts. Well, Tim Hortons.
Wow.
How can you even do that? But
That is
and
yeah, that
so
would be a red flag for me
yeah, it
too.
was a massive red flag, and I still went ahead and worked with them anyhow, and lived to rue the day. It worked okay for several months, and then it stopped working, and her husband lost his job, and she didn't lose her taste for donuts and coffee, and they quit paying the rent.
Yeah. But that is a good lesson is always trust your gut. It is difficult kind of to get that sense, but you'll know it. You get into a deal, you things are just off and you're like,
Yeah.
you know what? I probably shouldn't do this. And if that ever happens to you, definitely I would say take that advice. Take that advice from
Figure
yourself.
out how to get out of that sucker. Exactly.
There
Yeah.
you go. All right, next lesson or next question. This is we've kind of been talking about this whole time, but it's about capital raising. It takes money to
Yeah.
make money. So, what is your favorite way to raise capital?
Oh, podcast by far. Yeah. Connecting with people on a podcast, starting that relationship, uh, moving them from podcast interview into follow up discovery call about what you're up to with real estate. Keep it soft. Don't try to get them to invest right away. That's, like going on a second date and asking somebody to marry you. It's just too hard, too fast. But get the ball rolling and have a very clear idea in mind of exactly what you want to do. So, for example, with the podcast, is like job number one, let's get them on the interview. Let's have a good interview, make them feel good. Job number two, pique their curiosity, get them booked into a discovery call about what you're up to with real estate. Job number three, get them interested in there, get them to do a warm commitment, signing off on an expression of interest, something along those lines. They aren't cutting you a check. It's nothing legally binding, but it just shows that they are interested, and then keep in touch with them, allow them to have first looks, first dibs at your deals as they're coming along. So that's kind of the process I found works best.
Nice. So, I'm gonna repeat that because that was a pretty good synopsis of how to get people into your funnel of capital raising. So you said get them on the podcast, interview them about their what they're doing, their business. Second step was shoot, I, I wrote it down and I didn't write the right thing. Take us through the three
Yeah.
steps one more time.
Yeah. So the first step is have a podcast that appeals to your ideal investor avatar. Second step is interview them, make them look good, feel good, sound good. Third step is convert that interview into capital. And the way you do that, there's a few pieces in there. Create curiosity, book them into a discovery call, right?
Mm,
And then in
there we
that
go.
discovery call, get them to do something. They don't have to completely commit, but get some sort of a warm commitment, like a signed off expression of interest or something like that. And then keep them in the loop, give them first eyes, first dibs on opportunities as they come up.
Perfect. I love it. All
Yeah.
right, that leads us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about, so I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you, and then what can they expect when they reach out? Actually, it's a three-parter for you. You also have a book. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I've just written a book all about this process. I call it How to Get 20 Accredited Investor Meetings Every Month Without Cold Calling, Networking, or Chasing People. And you can get a free PDF version of that in exchange for your name and your email address. And just go to the website 20 accredited investors book.com. So that's the number 20 accredited investors, plural, book.com. And that's where you can get the book. And that's probably the best way to get connected with me, because that'll get you into my world, and we can keep in touch that way.
Perfect. I will put that
Yeah,
link in the show notes. So if you guys want to reach out to Dave, just click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description, and in there you can find his link.
perfect.
All right, Dave, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Thanks for having me, Gabe. It's always a blast. Appreciate it. Can't wait to have you on my show again. It's always fun to kind of do this every 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
For everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me, Gabe at the realestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, just leave us a review. Other than that, hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.